Was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. Attorney-client privilege, yes, I will turn it over.
You, as my friend Mr. Meadows pointed out, misled this committee even today in a written submission that contradicted your testimony.
So I'm not exactly sure how Democrats ever thought this issue was going to end up for them. But over the past couple of days, we've seen even more releases of Epstein emails, and the situation just continues to get worse for the Democrats. Because on one hand, we know the entire reason they're after this, okay? They never cared about Epstein. They're just hoping maybe something will make Trump look bad in it. And yet the opposite is happening. The more that comes out, the more we get that exonerates Trump, despite this narrative they tried to push about Epstein and Trump being BFFs. Actually, if you didn't already know, now we have more proof that Trump and Epstein did not like each other, which should not be a surprise to anyone who paid attention to this issue for years and was not just a left-wing partisan. But there you have it. We have even more emails released recently that have Epstein himself pointing out that Trump never participated in illicit activity. But folks, it doesn't just stop there. What if I told you the Democrats were projecting? Yeah, it would not be the first time for sure, because apparently in newly released emails over the weekend, we are finding that a House Democrat, not Trump, not the Republicans, a sitting House Democrat who, by the way, is still in Congress right now, was exchanging text messages with Jeffrey Epstein in 2019, folks, not some years back, 2019. I'm pretty sure by then he was already indicted, right? Over the two of them colluding together to try to take down Trump, which you might have already seen in the past emails with Michael Wolff. So essentially, right, Democrats spend many months trying to paint Epstein as this elitist pedophile who's in with the billionaire Donald Trump. And then the more we learn about him, again, if you didn't already know, because you should, in reality, he was your typical anti-Trump Democrat voter, okay? Typical resist lib. He's working with the Democrats. He wanted to take him down. He was highly suspicious, by the way, the whole time. And we're getting more evidence of it, that Trump was the one who alerted the police and ultimately took down Epstein throughout the years. Gee, I wonder why Epstein was so obsessed with Trump in those emails. Maybe because he knew exactly what was going on, but we'll tell you about these brand new bombshells in today's video. Again, not just what Epstein's saying about Trump, but the fact that Epstein was colluding with elected Democrat politicians on how to take down Trump just months before he quote unquote killed himself, you know. But anyways, we'll get into it. First though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's the best way to support our work. It helps us reach more people, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of our latest videos. And that said, okay, so let us start here with the Trump news, because we just got a piece yesterday from the New York Post pointing out Epstein claimed that Trump was a regular visitor but never participated in illicit activity. So here you go. Convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein once claimed President Trump was a regular at his Palm Beach mansion, but never got a rub down or was a part of any illicit activity. Quote, Trump knew of it. It's unclear what it is, by the way, but he knew of it and came to my house many times during that period, Epstein wrote in a February 1st, 2019 email to himself, months before getting arrested on sex trafficking charges and quotations killing himself in jail. Quote, he never got a massage. Oh, really? Now, that shouldn't be surprising because we've pointed that out for years, right? Trump played a role in taking down Epstein. That's what the lawyers of the victims have said. Virginia, right? The famous Epstein victim also said Trump never did anything. Now even Epstein himself said that Trump never did anything. And you might sit there and say, okay, but how do you know Jeffrey Epstein is a reliable source? That's fair enough. I know he's not. But let's not forget that who's using currently Jeffrey Epstein as a reliable source? The Democrats. Because what are they unironically trying to use as leverage from the past leaks, right? Is the Jeffrey Epstein quote in 2017, writing to Michael Wolff saying, quote, I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. And the Democrats already, not just as like a legal authority or just a record of what happened, have been trying to use Epstein as their moral authority, which is insane projection, but I guess the Democrats are reverting back to their original form, as we'll talk about later in the video. Yeah, after all, it goes without saying, if Jeffrey Epstein did not like Donald Trump, and Epstein is like a bad guy, one of the worst guys ever, then it stands to reason that probably means Trump is a good guy, right? I don't exactly know if we should be using that, but, like I said, their moral compass has always been screwed up, and I guess that's what they're still doing now. So it goes on here, though. The email first reported by the Washington Post does not explain what it refers to. Yeah, I mean, we know they love to release these things out of context, which is probably what they're trying to do right now. But even in the context, even without the context, I should say, it still does not really look that good for Democrats. Nonetheless, refers to and was released as part of roughly 20,000 pages of documents from Epstein's estate that were made public Wednesday by the House Oversight Committee. Now, in another 2019 email to author Michael Wolff, Epstein claimed of Trump, quote, "Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop," referring to confidant and fixer Ghislaine Maxwell. That's part of the prior emails, by the way, that Democrats tried to release to say, oh, look, Trump said he was involved because he knew about the girls. But the full context there is, of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. In other words, he was trying to stop what was happening, right? Good job, Democrats. Haven't you really just found a real bombshell here? Okay. Anyways, what he knew and whether it had to do with the convicted sex offenders' crimes was unclear. But the point I'd like to make is that, first of all, in similarly released emails, there's another one of Jeffrey Epstein saying he believed Donald Trump alerted police about his trafficking scheme amid their exploding feud, according to claims from Michael Wolff. So literally, say what you will. Okay, you don't believe him. Maybe he wrote that for some nefarious purpose, whatever. But again, I point out, right, that it's not just that Trump knew about it and didn't get involved. There's rampant evidence he did get involved, okay? We played the clip in the last video. His lawyers, the victims' lawyers have said that. He was the only one they didn't have to subpoena because he was fully, on board with it. We know it's his administration that actually finally obviously took down Epstein. And by the way, you look at, the past comments he made even years ago about Epstein, I think the story here becomes pretty clear that actually this headline is fairly plausible, is it not?
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool. So
the Clintons are friends
and he's
of
been
yours,
there
right?
for many times.
The Clintons are friends.
Well, I can't say friends, but I know
You're friendly. You know them.
They play at my clubs a lot. I have clubs, and everybody likes to play at my clubs.
Are you saying there's a political problem for her if she runs for president?
It could be a political problem. Look, he could be a political problem. Right now, he's Teflon, and right now, maybe not. But he could end up being a political problem.
That's one question.
So yeah, guys, are we surprised by any of this? Raise your hand if you're surprised. Oh, I see no hands. Because we knew this all along. This is what we were saying for years, okay? There, by the way, is a reason why for a very long time, before you could call it Pam Bondi blunder, Democrats never cared about the Epstein stuff. They actually tried to get people to stop talking about it. They called people conspiracy theorists, and it was the right wing who was pushing it against the left wing. Why is that? Because despite recent revisionist history, the evidence has always been clear. Trump and Epstein were not connected. Trump played a huge role in taking down Epstein. Yet when you dig down the rabbit hole, the connections seem a lot closer to people like obviously Bill Clinton, right? But not even alone, it turns out, because we also just got a piece this weekend out of the New York Post showing that a House Democrat, who is still in Congress, by the way, exchanged texts with Jeffrey Epstein on how to hurt Trump during a 2019 congressional hearings, according to documents. So isn't that interesting? We already had emails between Epstein and Wolff, again, basically talking like resist libs, right? The typical anti-Trump Democrat. He's dangerous. We can't let him have power. He has horrible morals, right? It doesn't really sound like GOP rhetoric or MAGA rhetoric. Let me just say that, okay? We know about the suspicious relationship that Epstein had with people like Bill Clinton. You could even say Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates. Not accusing them of anything that I don't have proof of. I'm just saying, right, if you're going to try to dig down rabbit holes of conspiracies, it seems to lean more in one direction. But here is what you could actually call a smoking gun. The fact that Jeffrey Epstein, years after in emails talking about trying to blackmail Trump essentially because he was scared of Trump having power, right? He wanted to take him down. I wonder why he was scared of Trump having power, by the way. This crazy sex offender pedophile guy who was doing all this bad stuff, yeah. Well, here you go. House Democrat exchanged texts with Epstein on how to hurt Trump during a 2019 congressional hearing. The dating there, by the way, is pretty unavoidable. So, Jeffrey Epstein was feeding questions to Representative Stacey Plaskett during a 2019 congressional hearing and giving her real time on how to damage President Trump's reputation, newly released documents show. So again, Jeffrey Epstein working with the Democrats to try to create a narrative against Trump. Now, Epstein may be dead, but it does seem to me they're still doing the same thing today, okay? Democrats have never stopped using Jeffrey Epstein as their moral authority. They were doing it back in 2019, and they're still doing it today when they post quotes like this, right? I've met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. So the tactic never changes, right? They always rely on Jeffrey Epstein to try to sabotage Trump. Interesting. Okay. The texts, first reported by the Washington Post, show that the convicted pedophile was pontificating with Plaskett, who, by the way, is the representative of the U.S. Virgin Islands. So she's like elected to Congress, but she doesn't have a voting role because that's not a state, if you're wondering who this is. But upon my research, she is still in Congress to this day. Might even recognize her. I think she's one of the people who they did that whole grandstanding speech about demanding statehood for the territories. Was that her, right? Anyways, that's irrelevant. Again, just a Democrat here. During a February 2019 House Oversight Committee hearing. Oh, interesting. So the very committee right now that the Democrats are trying to release the emails from, that's hilarious. Hearing in which the then former president's ex-attorney Michael Cohen had testified about Trump's alleged payments to mistresses, right? This Stormy Daniels thing, to silence stories before the 2016 election, and Trump vehemently denied all allegations. Now, in the text messages, Epstein appeared to be watching on television while Cohen brought up former Trump executive Rona Kraft in his testimony. So here you have Jeffrey Epstein acting as a top political consultant, you could say, of the Democrat Party. Well, I guess that's never changed, right? Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets. Epstein texted, misspelling Graf's name. Rona responded Plaskett, a non-voting delegate representing the U.S. Virgin Islands. Quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? She added, suggesting she'd grill Cohen soon. So yeah, in the middle of this hearing, right? Texting Jeffrey Epstein, hey, what do you think I should say? That's his assistant, Epstein replied, right? The text messages also showed Epstein influence what questions that Cohen asked. Okay, he's opened the door to questions regarding who are the other henchmen at the Trump organization. Epstein texted Plaskett at 12:25 p.m. Yup, very aware and awaiting my turn. Honestly, reading all this, aren't you a little surprised, frankly, that the Democrats were not using Jeffrey Epstein as a witness during the impeachment hearings? I mean, they seem to rely on him for everything. So, you know, buddy here, as you can tell. Why does Plaskett, this random delegate, even have Jeffrey Epstein's phone number, by the way? Like, what is going on? What are they talking about? Random congresswoman, not from Palm Beach? I mean, it's kind of weird. Anyways, Plaskett began questioning Cohen at 2:28 p.m. and asked about Graf, as well as with other Trump associates Epstein had mentioned, according to the Washington Post. So they're just having a really deep conversation here. But okay, here's where it gets even crazier. At 2:34 p.m., Epstein told Plaskett, quote, good work, a minute after she finished her questioning. So Jeffrey Epstein was a big fan of what the House Democrats were doing in Congress that day. Isn't that really interesting? A buddy-buddy relationship, it does seem like to me, right? Good work, right? Jeffrey Epstein is proud of you, House Democrats. You know, if he were here right now, he'd probably be proud as well. He's like, yes, manufacture a false narrative to slander Trump when, clearly we're kind of projecting in this sense, right? Some things never change. They used Epstein as their moral authority back then. They still use him as their moral authority today. The text messages were released as part of 20,000 pages from that Epstein estate from Wednesday. The document redacted Plaskett's names, but very interesting. The Democrats redacted the name. But the newspaper analyzed the messages and compared them to hearing footage to report that Plaskett was indeed texting Epstein. Uh-oh. Now, here's the thing. She also doesn't have the excuse that, I didn't know what was going on with Epstein yet. Why? Because at the time, Jeffrey Epstein was already convicted on state prostitution charges, and months later, he'd be charged with sex trafficking minors. So, it's already well established the guy was a creep, okay? And yet they were still talking. Epstein owned 2 private islands in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Great St. James and Little St. James, which the feds have called the nexus of his sex trafficking operations. Oh, so with the congresswoman / delegate from the Virgin Islands, isn't that so interesting? You know, Epstein working alongside her to take down Trump. I wonder why that could be the case, right? Plaskett had initially declined comment, but after the newspaper published his story Friday night, her office issued a statement confirming she had contact during the hearing with her former campaign donor. So Jeffrey Epstein, guys, donating to the campaigns of Democrats, working with the Democrats to take down Trump, texting the Democrats during the House hearings. It's almost like Jeffrey Epstein was probably a Democrat. I know, wild take. I mean, people could have never expected this. But anyways, their cover-up statement is the following. During the hearing, Congresswoman Plaskett received texts from staff, constituents, and the public at large offering advice, support, and in some cases partisan vitriol, including from Epstein, the statement said. Well, that might be more plausible, if not the case that Epstein said good work and was really proud of your performance. And here's the excuse they're running with, though, okay? As a former prosecutor, she welcomes information that helps her get at the truth and took on the GOP that was trying to bury the truth. Really? So you got the truth from Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. That's your reliable source. You trust everything that Jeffrey Epstein says. Well, again, Democrats, some things never change. Because when Jeffrey Epstein says that Trump is a bad guy, you believe him. So there you go. Again, some things never change. The Congresswoman has previously made clear her long record combating sexual assault and human trafficking. Oh, were you now? Is that why, the top nexus, according to the feds, of human trafficking from Epstein was going on in your territory? Yeah, I'm sure you had so much care for that. Her discuss over Epstein's deviant behavior and her support for his victims. Yeah, I mean, that's what she has to do. But again, good work. Texting her contributed to your campaign. It seems like the relationship there was actually pretty close. As a matter of fact, right, Democrats keep trying to run guilt by association against Trump, okay? And they have no proof of this. Again, we've gone over, it's pretty well documented. They had a falling out and all that. But their whole argument is, they were in some pictures together. They were at a party together once. Clearly, they were together, right? This is a way closer relationship, and it's a political one. Silence, crickets from the Democrats. They care about all these out of context little things, right? The dog that hasn't barked. But this, maybe the most smoking gun we've seen thus far, the biggest bombshell, total silence. But, anyways, there you essentially have it. Plaskett later made news in June 2023 when she said Trump, quote, needs to be shot over his alleged mishandling of classified documents, before quickly correcting herself, saying that he should be stopped. Some of you guys might remember that clip. That sounds familiar to me. But, there you have it. Trump also called earlier this week on the Department of Justice to probe Epstein's links to Democrat bigwigs and institutions like J.P. Morgan Chase. Well, they should have been doing that all along. But, nonetheless, okay, right? Democrats want to make this the political fight. Look at you guys. There's Stacey Plaskett. There's Ro Khanna, by the way, acting like this big populist warrior. Oh, I want to release the Epstein files. Okay. What do you have to say about your colleague right next to you, Did you notice, by the way, did you see that she was texting Jeffrey Epstein as you spoke? I don't know. Just a question I have. But, there you have it. You also see some emails of Jeffrey Epstein trying to advise the Russian government on how to deal with Donald Trump. So another case of him basically going to Trump's adversaries and, trying to basically undermine and sabotage him, right? But I'm sure they were best friends. That's why Epstein was terrified of Trump, basically. So there you have evidence of that as well. Democrats have further actually deleted one of their past posts claiming that Trump spent Thanksgiving with Epstein in 2017. I wonder why that is. Probably because it's an easily disprovable lie, yes, and the attempts to connect Trump to Epstein's crimes are a giant hoax. The Democrats are already backtracking on this, okay? And take a look at the excuses they're now trying to run, because every time you bring up the actual substance of the emails, not only does it not look good for Democrats, not only does it make Trump look better, it actually makes it sound like Epstein was a Democrat. Like he's talking the same way they are. So what's the excuse here now, guys? All right, take a listen to this narrative. Quote, in the newly released Epstein emails, Donald Trump is mentioned more than Bill Clinton and Larry Summers by a lot. Okay, so in these email threads, Trump was mentioned 1,670 out of 2,300 email threads. So they try to say, Epstein said Trump's name a lot, so therefore Epstein was, doing the bad stuff with Trump. It's like, okay, first of all, maybe you'd have an argument if not for the fact that the actual substance of the emails is mostly Jeffrey Epstein complaining and bitterly seething about Trump in a very similar way your average Democrat older voter on Blue Sky basically talks, right? You know? Yeah, Democrats on Facebook, okay, you're like liberal hippie aunt or something like that. How many times do you think they have Facebook posts mentioning Trump's name? It's probably a lot, because you know why? You know what it actually proves? Jeffrey Epstein, much like the Democrats that he was advising and supporting and helping out, had Trump derangement syndrome. Yes, Democrats, again, you're projecting here, okay? Yeah, that's what's happening. Will Chamberlain says, yes, Jeffrey Epstein was a, blank lib, just like his email buddies. He was a libtard, right? And just as obsessed with stopping Trump as the rest of them, hence why they were talking to each other about much of the same stuff. And there you essentially have it, They have another one here. The Democrats trying to run with this, claiming that Trump gave a blowjob to Bill Clinton, whose nickname, by the way, to Epstein was Bubba, right? Seems to be a pretty affectionate, by the way, nickname to me. But even this email, completely out of context, apparently Epstein said, ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. And apparently, actually, that comes from Mark Epstein, the brother here. And it's like, this is proof they're clearly joking or bitterly seething. And that's the big proof that, and that's the scandal now, is that Trump gave a blowjob to Bill Clinton. It's so ridiculous, first of all. But, secondly, sounds kind of homophobic to me. I don't know, Democrats. But no, it's just garbage, right? They're trying to reach for whatever on earth they can find, because the actual substance, again, not only exonerates Trump, not only shows that Epstein was trying to take down Trump because Trump was trying to take down his crap, right? But it turns out, no, who was Jeffrey Epstein all along? The exact guy we thought, okay? The buddy of Bill Clinton, the Democrat helping and donating to the other Democrats. Yeah, go figure. Who tried to tell you? Who was right? Who was wrong? All right. That said, though, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you were new, and until next time, God bless and peace.